Hello, welcome to my channel, or welcome back if you've been here before. My name is Bethanne, and today I'm sharing a wrap-up of the 4 books that I've read in the second half of March. So I did this month try out doing a mid-month wrap-up, so I'll link to that video below because I read 5 books in the first half of the month. But this will just be a quick summary of the last 4. So in total this month I read 9 books, and that was 2,529 pages, which feels like kind of a lot for me. So that was pretty exciting. And I started keeping track of what books I'm reading do I already own versus get from the library versus buy in that month, etc. So in this month, of the 9 books that I read, 5 were books that I already owned prior to the start of March. 3 were ones that I bought this month and then also read in March. And then 1 was a library book. So let's just dive right in. So first I'm going to talk about books I read for readathons. So I participated in March of the Moderns, which was organized by Margaret Pinard, so I will link to her channel down below. This was a really fun readathon. The goal was to read books written between 1901 and 1945, I want to say. So I did try to get a bingo. I had 4 books that I wanted to read, and I managed to finish 2, and then I'm halfway through 2 others. So I'm halfway through 20 Years at Hull House by Jane Addams and Maurice by E.M. Forster. And I am enjoying those. I'm definitely going to finish them, so I'll probably talk about them next week. But I did not bingo for March of the Moderns, which is too bad. Anyway, the 2 that I finished, one is Not Without Laughter by Langston Hughes, which was just an absolute joy to read. I absolutely love this one. I did a standalone review earlier in the month, so I'll try to remember to link to that in the description box below. And then the other March of the Moderns book I finished is this one, War with the Newts by a Czech author, Karel Capek. Actually, not really sure how that's pronounced. This was published in 1936. The English edition came out in 1937, and this book is sort of in the style of 1984, Animal Farm, that sort of science fiction dystopian way of sort of looking at some troubling social issues of the 20th century. So this was written, as I mentioned, by a Czech author, so set in what we now call the Czech Republic in 1936 in the interwar period. And so this book really heavily draws on the themes that Central and Eastern Europe were really dealing with at that time. So we get a lot of references to World War I, and the book is sort of really drawing notice to sort of the increasing militarization that was going on in Europe at the time leading up to World War II. So it really draws strongly from what was going on in that period. And the title, I just sort of assumed before I actually started reading this book that the title was going to be just sort of a metaphor somehow, War with the Newts. No, there are actually newts. So the premise of this book is that on a very isolated, tiny island in the Pacific, a boat that is harvesting pearls, and so they have a couple local divers who dive down into the ocean to collect oysters that are then searched for pearls. They dive down in the ocean at this little island, and they come back totally rattled because they're like, there are big salamanders down there staring at us. So the salamanders are like 4.5 feet tall, and very advanced and very or not really advanced in terms of like what we think of as civilization, but like very intelligent creatures. And so the rest of the book just imagines what would rampant capitalism and nationalism do with a new race of newts that are huge and anthropomorphic. And it just really goes to sort of the absurd extreme, ending in a giant world war between humankind and the newts. So it starts with sort of a ramping up of exploitation of the newts. They're basically enslaved. They are sort of farmed and bred problem is that they're intelligent creatures. There's a lot of discussion about whether they're intelligent or not. There's a lot of discussion about whether they have souls or not, sort of in the media and everything. They are primarily useful for sort of underseas construction. So there's this whole thing where like nations are just, owning these newts to expand their territory by like building new land. And so the newts, they're giving them explosives and things like that. And then weird things start happening, like earthquakes, and everybody's like, oh, it's an earthquake, where an earthquake has never been before. And it sort of takes everyone a while to be like, oh, the newts are sabotaging us. And then everyone goes, well, why? It's like, because you literally enslaved intelligent creatures. And then we end with war with the newts. So yeah, it's just totally about exploitative capitalism. um, and it was a wild ride. This was a very quick book to read. It can be a little bit depressing because it is dealing with things like enslavement and capitalist exploitation of resources and just absurd but very recognizable even today, let alone pre-World War II, sort of arms race mentality. There are some absurd scenarios in here about when different countries get into conflict and when people get into conflict with the newts versus not, and it seems absurd, but when you're reading this, you're like, oh, that actually, like, that's pretty much something that did happen in the same absurdity. Yeah, this is just really fantastic. It did, so I guess the style is sort of, it's almost written as like a popular history book. The author is sort of explaining after everything happened, sort of what led up to the war with the newts. And so you do get sort of allusions to the fact that that would happen early in the book. And then since it is sort of like a popular history book, there's a lot of fake sources in here, which is sort of fun. But there's a couple chapters that get a little bit bogged down. He has these like crazy long footnotes that'll just go on for pages that are, trying to find an example of a good one, that are just like fake news articles and fake propaganda and things that are made up as part of this. Yeah, well, it's hard to flip through and find a good one. So that could get, I mean, on the one hand, it was like really cool just how well constructed this was, but it also got a little bit old to be reading these giant long footnotes. But anyway, this is really cool for anybody who's sort of a World War II nerd or interwar nerd, especially if you like Central and Eastern Europe and what those countries were going through during that time. This book would be a fun read. I really enjoyed it. Okay, so those are my two March of the Moderns books. Then I also participated in March of Mammoths in two books, actually. So I'm still reading The Count of Monte Cristo. I'm about a third of the way through, and I had planned all along to have that take 2 months, partly based on some of the people that I'm buddy reading that with. So I'll be continuing that into April. But then the March of the Mammoths book that I did finish is this epic fantasy, Ship of Magic by Robin Hobb, which I did a standalone review for, so I will link to that below if you want to go check it out. I love this book. It was great. So that was the third book in the second half of the month, and then the final book is one I just picked up, on a weekend, just reading in like down moments with my kid, and it's The Cat Who Smelled a Rat by Lilian Jackson Braun. I sort of assume anybody who reads mystery is at least familiar with these books. They're sort of pulpy, cozy mystery. I think they were a lot more common or a lot more read in the 90s. And they're just, to me, cozy mystery. They're feel good, they're fun, they're not particularly, stimulating or exciting. They're just cute. I am a cat person, so I like that there are cats in these books, but the cats are great because they're not anthropomorphized. They're just cats, but like cats, I mean, anybody who's been a cat owner, it's like your cat does crazy things sometimes, and of course cat owners all joke about like their cat can see ghosts because they stare up at, the one spot on the ceiling or something. Like, cats are a little bit creepy. And so one of the cats who is owned by the main character who solves the mysteries in these books sort of has that like cat sixth sense, so he'll like knock things off a shelf and it turns out that one of the things he knocked is related to a clue for the mystery. So it's well done because the cats are sort of just being cats, and we just have this astute, careful observer who's the sort of main character person, who can sort of put two and two together and find inspiration in odd places. So I like that aspect. Like I said, they're cute. This one is not. Some of them are like actually interesting with how the mysteries are put together and stuff. This one is not. This one is just a little bit more. I don't know. The mystery is a little bit more opaque, and there's just too much other side character stuff going on. But it was a fun, light little read. So that's a lot of babbling, but yeah, so these were the 4 books that I read or that I finished in the second half of March, and I mentioned a couple others that I'm still in the middle of. I think I'm not going to do a separate TBR for April. I've sort of decided April is going to be my catch-up month, which is a little frustrating, so I feel like I'm missing out. I'm missing out on like Aussie April and stuff. I might try to pick up an Australian book just to do something for that. But I have so many books that I've talked about at various times on this channel over the past few months that I just didn't get to for time reasons. So I'm hoping to just catch up with some of those, catch up with some book club books in the month of April. So I will still be reading and talking about lots of books, but I don't think I'm going to post a separate organized TBR video. So just to throw that out there. All right, I hope everyone is having a good week. And if you're not already subscribed to my channel, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button, and I will see you all in the next video. Thanks. Bye.